Okay, today we're making a bread wreath. Make sure you have all your ingredients before you get started. And I've got a picture here, and you'll have a recipe to go with, but these are the main things you need. Alright, I'm taking a cup and a half of milk over to the stove where we need to scald it, which is an important step for reasons I don't completely understand. So, when you're scalding milk, you need to stir it often. And we're going to do this until it gets bubbly and it starts to get puffy and rises. Alright, in the bowl, we're going to get ready for the scalded milk by putting a half a cup of sugar in here. Great. Alright, so half a cup of sugar. Don't reduce the sugar, it doesn't taste as good. Alright, I need 2 beaten eggs, so I'll get those ready now. 2 beaten eggs. Alright, so this is the scalded milk now, because it's come to a boil. I'm pouring the hot milk over the sugar and stirring it until it dissolves. So, I'm going to add half a cup of ice water to this mixture. Not ice, just ice water. And I want to bring this to 100 to 110 degrees, which is really crucial to this whole operation because we're going to add yeast, which is living. We're going to be waking it up without killing it by making it too hot. So here's my thermometer. And I'm going to put it in here, not touching the bowl. And I want to get the temperature between 100 and 110 degrees. Thank you. See, it's 124, so it's too hot now. So just give it some time. It cools off pretty quickly. Here we are at 109 degrees. So we're going to add the yeast. We're going to add 2 packages of the fast-acting rapid rise yeast. I use Fleischmann's, any brand will do. And you use 2 packages. This is going to wake up under the warmth of the temperature and the sugar from the milk and sugar. So this is the sleeping yeast, and give it about 10 minutes and it will wake up into a foam, a puffy foam. And we just let it sit. Alright, so you'll see that this is foamy now. You don't want to go past 8 or 10 minutes on this phase. This has taken 8 minutes. Alright, so it's ready for the next step. So we're going to take a tablespoon of salt and we toss that in. And then we use a half a cup of flour. We use bread flour. We use King Arthur's because we like the picture. Any bread flour will do. Half a cup of flour. And then we mix this a bit. And then we're going to add the eggs that have been beaten. This is 2 beaten eggs. And stir that just a bit. And we're going to add the melted butter. It's very important that you don't put really hot butter onto the eggs or else it'll cook them and then they won't mix properly. So here comes the butter, which is cooled. Now comes some fun. So we're going to stir this up a little bit. It's not important to stir it completely. And then we're going to start to add some flour. I'm going to add 6.5 cups of flour, more or less. That's It's not important that you measure this precisely. You'll know when it's time to stop because the batter will get thick. So you keep mixing as you go along. And this is sort of fun. That was 1 cup, and here comes another. Okay. The reason you don't let the yeast rise too much in that first phase is because that yeast, that same yeast, has to rise 2 more times. And if it rises too long in that first phase, it gets all used up and it doesn't rise enough at the final phase. All right, and some more. As I say, it's not that important that you measure. See how it's getting thick? So stir in between each addition. Alright, I'm taking off my ring. My hands are clean because I'm going to be diving in here. Alright, it would still stick to my fingers at this point, so I'm stirring with my spoon, but we're about done with this. This. All right, so I'm putting some flour on my wooden table. I'm getting some flour on my hands, and I'm going to take this out of the bowl in a second. And we're going to continue mixing it with our fingers. This is fun. Okay, so with bread you knead it. That's K-N-E-E-D, E-A-D, and we turn it, fold it, and press it down with the heel of your hand. Turn it, fold it, press it down with your heel of your hand. And you just keep doing that until it starts to turn into a recognizable bread-like dough. One key to this is that we don't want to trap a lump of flour into here. So we don't want to put, like, I wouldn't take a glob of flour and put it there and then fold it over, because you'd have a lump of dry flour in there and that wouldn't be good. You keep doing this until it starts to spring back. See how it's starting to get springy and start to get elastic? Now we don't need to add any more flour because it's not sticking to anything anymore. And just keep the flour on the board. And this process takes what? About 5 or 6 minutes. And we want to keep on doing it until it's pretty smooth. Almost shiny. We're almost done. It's getting harder, so I have to push it pretty hard to make it go flat. That means we've activated the gluten in the flour. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to put this in a little ball and rest it here on the table just long enough, let it rest, for me to wash this bowl. I'll be back in a minute. The bowl is clean. It's important that you get it dry on the inside. So we're going to dry this bowl really well. And then I'm going to put a tablespoon of oil in the bowl. Don't usually measure it, but I'm measuring it for you. Yeah, that's about right. A tablespoon of oil.
Olive oil.
It can be olive oil or any similar oil. It doesn't have to be olive oil. Now, with dry hands, pick up the bread, put it in the olive oil in the bottom of the bowl. See? And we're going to make sure the whole lump is covered with oil so no part of it sticks to the bowl while it's rising. You want to make sure the bowl is oiled all the way up the sides. There we go. So now I'm going to cover this with a slightly damp towel. I'm going to put it in the microwave, covered with the towel for half an hour until it's doubled in size. So this is how I dampen my towel. Just with a little squirt of water. So it's just damp, clean towel. Put it over the top. Now I put it in the microwave because it's a slightly warmer space than the room, but I don't have the microwave on. It's just sitting in there to be left alone in a warmish place. And the microwave works for me. You could use your own space, put it on top of the refrigerator or whatever. I just leave it in there for 30 minutes. There we go. Okay, so now it has roughly doubled in size. That's what we want. You don't want it to rise too much or we'll use up the yeast again. Now we bring it back to the table. Put a little flour on our hands and get ready for more fun. We're going to do what's called punching down. I'm going to literally punch it down. Take it out of the bowl. And we're going to knead it again for a while. We're going to try and get the bubbles out. And then this is going to be divided into 3 sections and braided. And then we let it rest for a final rise. Goodness. Good workout. Okay, so we do this just a few times to try and crush the bubbles out of it. And then we're going to divide it into 3 sections as nearly equal as we can muster. Alright, so I'm going to use a sharp knife to do this. Alright, so let's see. Trying to get it into thirds. So let's see, about right 1/3 there. Trying not to cut my table. And 1/3 there. Okay. Now, we're going to make these into lengths that we can braid. And that process just involves sort of squeezing it and using the weight of it. There may be a more graceful way to do this, but if so, I haven't figured it out. Sort of like milking a cow. You don't want to pull it per se, you really want to just press it because you're pressing the bubbles out. Want it to be about 2.5 feet long so you can make a big circle that'll fit on the cookie sheet. Boop. So we're going to keep on doing this. Alright, I have 3 strands, and actually they're longer than 2.5 feet. They're like, I don't know, almost 3 feet long. And I'm going to bind them together here at the tip with a squish, and then braid them just like you braid somebody's hair. So over one. We're just going to keep braiding. Am I doing this right? There we go. It's not quite as pretty as hair, but it's going to be beautiful when it's done. Really it is. All right, now I'm going to move it to the baking pan as gracefully as possible. And we're forming it into a ring by squishing the ends together here and spreading it out. And kind of just forming it in. It's going to rise one more time. We have a couple of things to do to this before we're done. So this will be for the final rise. Some people might like to put a bow or some sort of condiment, maybe I don't know, a butter thing there when they're done. Okay, so we're going to put this in the oven to rise. The oven is off and it's going to rise for about half an hour. Okay, so as I take this out of the oven, I'm going to preheat the oven to 375. And look how well it's grown. It's really puffing up. Now I'm going to brush it with an egg wash, which is egg and water mixed together. And this is a food grade paintbrush. I bought it at Zingerman's. I know it just looks like something I got at Eco Hardware, but it's not. And so I'm gently covering all of it. Okay, so I finished putting this egg wash all over this, even though I didn't use up all of that. Now I'm going to, just for decoration's sake, I'm going to take some of this kosher salt, about a tablespoon of it, and I'm going to just sprinkle it over top, which doesn't show very much now, but when it's all golden, it will show more. This recipe was given to me by Grandma Sandy's good friend, Sandy Jones, who called this the recipe for the best rolls she'd ever tasted. And they are. All right, a little bit more, just for fun. And now we're going to put it in the oven at 375. And it only bakes for about 15 minutes. You want to bake it until it's almost too brown. Then you know it's done. Okay. All right, in it goes. At 375. And I start watching it at 15 minutes. It might take a little bit longer. In it goes. 15 minutes. And we'll watch. Oh my, isn't this amazing?
Don't drop it.
Woo, 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 woo. Oh my gosh, that is gorgeous. Let me take it off of there. Pull it out from under the hot water. Ah, yes. That is beautiful.